Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
Good. I can. Can you hear me?
Excellent, I can.
Good. And I think it may be a small but mighty group today.
Small and mighty is good.
I thought maybe I'd give people a couple more minutes to jump on. Let me go ahead and pull up our agenda here. I do have a hard stop at 10:30 as your host here today. So I'll give it another minute. Oh, otherwise it'll just be you and Melody.
I did have a quick question, a little off subject, but it was about the town's municipal billing. I'm just we don't have to talk about it right now, but I just wanted to let you know that I looked over what you did send me.
Yeah.
And if you have more, please send it along.
So if you're looking for more, I'd recommend, so Christy's on that email, who's our discounts payable. I would just respond back to that because that's all she shared with me. So if you're looking for something else, you maybe just want to ask her specifically what it is you might be seeking.
Yeah, we just want to know if it's 100% for the Oakleaf subscription.
We don't believe it is.
Right.
So we need,
right. So we'd like to know what isn't, if we can.
So I think that's why we were hoping that maybe someone from that team could do the cross comparison, because our team, we just don't have the capacity right now. If this is something that's needed urgently, we don't have the capacity to take that on.
Well, we will do that.
Okay. So you should have everything then to do the cross comparison.
Oh, okay. From what you sent me, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But let me know after you get into it. Hey, Billy. All right, let's get going. So we're a small group today. So it's Billy, Larry, Melody. And I did just share, Billy, I do have a hard stop at 10:30 as your host today. So hoping we can get through at least a bulk of this this morning. So Cynthia and I have not attended a Solar Ordinance Committee meeting. So bear with me while we work through this. But Cynthia basically got me up to speed that it sounds like one of the major goals for today is to land on that maximum building height for solar, something you've been talking about, I know, for maybe a couple of meetings. If we could really nail into that, what our final recommendation is, and then if time allows, we'll move on to that lot coverage, which I also know was talked about a bit at previous meetings. So that sounds good to everyone. Maybe I'll just throw that question out. Is, based on all your historical conversations, is there a recommendation on maximum building height for solar that's come up so far?
I'm kind of wondering if maybe Melody, you were kind of listening in the last couple of meetings. Just your take on where we're at. I think we're pretty much there. We were just kind of sticking on one point on existing versus new construction last 2 weeks ago.
It looks like we have Erica too. So I don't know, Erica.
Oh, is Erica there? Good.
If you can also comment on that.
Yeah, my understanding was the 5 feet. But Billy, there was some language about the apex of the roof line. And I'm just not as versed in the details. But I think Miranda, we were talking about, yes, we're okay to go over for solar for existing. And
you're saying over height by 5. So height limit's 35 feet. So you're saying that if someone were to install solar, they could go upwards to 40. Am I hearing that correctly?
Billy, is that what we talked about?
Yeah, what we had said, kind of a clarification was, Yes, I mean, that's it. But what we said was 5 foot from the roof deck.
Okay,
And the reason we said that was most flat roofed buildings, generally commercial, but sometimes residential, have a parapet or kind of a little short wall around the perimeter. And so we figured that would help obstruct some of that extra height. And you generally have to have a setback for sake of fire code of about 3 feet, I think, around the perimeter, so the fire can access the roof. So even with that little 1 foot, 2 foot, or 3 foot wall, the solar panels probably would not be obstructed. So I think we talked about having it be 5 foot above the roof deck. So that would
okay,
sometimes be 5 foot higher if there's no parapet, but it would be 5 foot, minus the parapet if there is a parapet. So we just said 5 feet above the roof deck. Now for a pitched roof, we all kind of agreed it's kind of moot because a flush mounted system on a pitched roof isn't going to probably go above the eave at all, or above the
yeah,
the peak of the roof at all, other than maybe a few inches.
okay,
But that was it. The big thing was the last thing we were sticking on was that with existing structures, I think we all agreed that giving an extra allowance seemed reasonable. But with new construction, we both myself and Cynthia and other people, I think some people had left. Whitney had left the phone call, and I think even Eric had left the phone call. Maybe I'm wrong, but or maybe you were still on, and Melody had left. But Karen was really thinking we should just give it 5 feet above, no matter what, new or existing. But we were kind of talking about the fact that with zoning, we'd really just be kind of ignoring zoning by doing that,
right.
and that with new construction that they would really need to meet the maximum height, or if they needed to go higher, they would just have to go for special review.
Okay,
And so that's where we were at. But I don't think there was necessarily agreement. That's why I would like to hear from these guys as well.
yeah, what is the feeling on new construction? Melody, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, what Billy said is exactly kind of what we talked about. And then there was just some of us that said, well, this would be for old construction where they could exceed that limit, but if it's new construction, they could plan accordingly to keep, their panels under that limit. And then some folks were like, but we also don't want to restrict them, too much. So there was just, I think we all agreed for old construction for sure. And then the new construction was kind of some of us. So I'm not sure if there was a consensus for a recommendation on that.
So I think minus obviously Cynthia, who's definitely serving as more of a moderator capacity. I think you are the group. I'm not sure, besides Whitney, I think we're only missing one. So, and there's Whitney. Hey, Whitney. Oh, Whitney, are you there? Can you hear us?
She had to cut out before we got to this
Okay.
last bit about existing versus new construction. So it'd be interesting to hear what she says. I know she had a little audio problem connecting last 2 weeks ago. So
Sure, and I don't know,
hopefully
Whitney.
the kids today.
Yeah, if Whitney, you're there and it's still an audio problem. Hopefully not.
I wonder if I could ask Melody if she has an opinion on the new construction versus existing issue, right, in terms of height.
Yeah, I would say that my personal opinion would be that new construction could plan so that they don't exceed their height with their panels, and then if they needed to ask for a variance, they could do it that way, and through that variance process kind of prove that it's not going to impact their neighbors too much or something like that. But I'm not against also allowing new construction to go over that height limit with some amount of restriction on that.
I guess I would just say that I'm really concerned about the zoning issue. And I just sort of feel like that we have to honor the zoning, which would mean an SRU, I guess, special review, for exceeding for new construction. That's what I'm hearing. And I guess to me, that's just the way the game would have to be played. I don't, zoning, we need to make it easy for people on zoning.
Yeah.
Are you on the phone?
Thanks, guys.
Yes, it is.
Hey, Whitney, it's Miranda. So we were, just to get you up to speed, we're talking about that maximum building height for solar. And it sounds like the consensus of the group is for existing construction. So looking at just a remodel, the person that someone will be able to go over the existing building height, which is 35 feet by 5 feet above the roof deck. And that would be for existing construction, existing buildings. But we're talking about new construction and whether or not new construction is held to the maximum building height standard and the solar panels need to fall within that 35 feet, or if they too could go upwards to 40. And if so, is that kind of an automatic use by right type situation, or would they need special approval for a new construction? And I think it sounds like maybe you jumped off before that conversation started last meeting. So we were curious what your take is on new construction and that compliance with building height.
Right. I think I would still be fine with solar panels going above that maximum height. I think in principle, maximum height is about the actual building itself. If there are a few solar panels that stick up above that, I don't think that I object to that.
Okay.
Whitney,
Yeah.
I would agree with that, because in our code, we don't require that solar panels are installed for new builds. And so I think if we did, that would be a different conversation, but we don't. So it's likely that these solar panels are going to be after new construction is completed. And again, we don't want to create extra hurdles. So I'm going back to this Boulder County, I don't know if it's Boulder County or city, that Karen shared, but they say roof mounted systems must be mounted as flush as possible to the roof. In order to achieve proper solar orientation, panels may exceed the height of the roof line and consequently the maximum height permitted in the zoning district by no more than 5 feet. I like that language. And I wonder if we could adopt something like that says, let's try to be as flush to the roof as possible. If you can't, no more than 5 feet.
Yeah, I like that.
Melody, Larry, Billy, yeah, what do you think?
I'm totally fine with that.
I just wanted to ask Erica if is the zone, how is Boulder treating the zoning part of that?
That's a good question, Larry, and I don't know. We can do some more research and see, but this is under proposed solar related land use code text. There's additional provisions as well that we can explore. Let me see if I can copy and paste this, or I could share it if I.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you maybe want to email it to the group. I mean, chat's on if you want to put it in chat, but I'm not sure. I think everyone has access, or if you wanted to email it to the group.
I'll
What do you
email.
mean?
I'm emailing because I'm on my phone right now.
Yeah, if
emailing
you
it.
wanted to email, I would actually was just hoping you would email that language so we had it. Billy, what do you think?
So, ultimately, I agree. I've kind of presented myself as someone who's against the solar lifting the limits. But the reason there's two things. There's one thing Erica said that I probably need to clarify. I think in our new code now that homes above a certain height are required to add solar, so they would be more stuck with they would need to stick to the maximum building height. And I could be wrong, but I know that was what we moved through in the fall when we were, finishing up that new code, that with the solar side, homes above a certain side were required to put renewables on. So that would have to be part of the construction. And again, for pitched roofs, which most residential is, this is all kind of moot because for the most point, it's not going to go higher than the roof line. The reason I've kind of been a stickler is that this has got to get through the BZA and through the Planning Commission, and they are just not going to. and I hope maybe I'm wrong, and we'll see, I guess. And if I'm wrong, then cool. But I think they're really going to push back hard on this, and then it's just going to like we're just going to be, changing this and changing this and changing it again, and then ultimately it goes to the BOT, and then Karen can work her magic with the BOT, and maybe they'll just go back to saying all 5 foot is fine no matter what. So I'm just trying to navigate. I'm in the BZA, I'm in the Planning Commission. I'm going to be having to navigate this, and I kind of want to believe in what I'm trying to push through. So that's where I'm at.
For me, in principle, the question comes down to, are solar panels on the roof part of the building when we're talking about building height, or are they not? Are they like a plumbing vent or a vent stack for a boiler or something, which you wouldn't have to make your whole house 2 feet shorter because you had a 2 foot plumbing vent sticking out of the top? That would be dumb. And I think it's a pretty easy argument to say that solar panels are also not a part of the building for the purposes of how can your building be. And we are even putting a limit to how much they can stick up, 5 feet, which seems reasonable. It means you can't make some giant like tower of solar on top of your house, which nobody was going to do anyways. But people can feel good if they want to make rules. They can feel good about making that rule. And I think the solar panels are like plumbing vents as far as building height goes. Is a pretty easy and simple argument that shouldn't need too much hassling.
Yeah, and I guess I can use that as the logic, when it hits, which it will, when it hits resistance with the BZA and the Planning Commission. I can use that logic, and because that is good logic. I'm just looking at a building right now, and the fact is, yeah, I mean, it's probably at 35 feet, but HVAC and plumbing, vents are going higher, and that is accurate, and that's a good point. I think, and the wording in general I like, from what Boulder County did. I would just like to put above the top of the roof deck versus roof line, because, and I know that's a little thing, but like for a flat roof, I don't think they should go above the parapet. I don't think it should be 5 foot above the parapet. In general, the parapet's not going to impede the solar array, so they can start from the roof deck.
With that existing language, just add a phrase on the end of where it says, more than 5 feet from the height of the roof. Just put as measured from the roof deck.
Perfect.
And
I will try to push that through the BZA and the PC as is.
So, Billy, could I ask you a question directly? Would you be comfortable then in taking a proposal that lets new builders go above the roof line if they need to? Would you be comfortable in taking that kind of proposal, to the planning board and commission and representing it? If you did, I would be willing to change my position and go along with making as high as we could.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me because I do think the maximum building height is something we don't want to mess with for sake of, I think if once we start, people are gonna, there's a lot of people that want to build projects that want them to go higher, and so I am tentative about it, but I do think if the logic is completely like this is really not the building, it's just an accessory part of one of the systems of the building, I feel like it's reasonable. And I think, also Whitney has said, kind of what I've experienced, other than kind of the monstrosities we see on top of the rec center or the community center, like in general, even on a flat roof building, they can generally get a raise to stay 3 or 4 feet above the height of the roof deck. So, I mean, and I think that's what I heard before. So I think it's, 5 feet is kind of like generous, really. Yeah, I'm kind of, to me, I'm like, in that I do, ultimately my goal too is to reduce barriers. I feel like I'm willing to go there and kind of allow buildings even on new homes to go above building height, and I can present it that way. I just expect resistance, and I do know, sadly, there's people in town that don't like solar, and I just want this to end up rolling out in a way that doesn't make a bunch of people angry and make them say, "Oh, the town just did this unilaterally," even though that's not what's happening. And there was, no input from the public, which there will be, but it's just, it'll get twisted back. It's my concern. But personally, I'm willing to agree to the extra height, even on new construction, and talk about it as Whitney kind of proposed, and try to move it through those commissions.
Yeah, and I think I think it would be weird to have different logic for new construction versus existing buildings. And I think with the logic of solar is like a plumbing vent, it's fine if it sticks up above, like the building height is the building height, and you can have, your stuff, your HVAC, your plumbing vents, whatever. Those things aren't included in the building height. But what I wouldn't want is for anybody, I wouldn't want it to be that if somebody's thinking about building a new house, like, well, if we put solar on it, we have to make the house 5 feet shorter. But if we don't put solar, we can make it really tall. So let's just not put solar on it and make it really tall. I think that is counterproductive, and it doesn't make any sense to say it doesn't. To me, it doesn't make any sense to include solar in the height of the building. It's not the building; it's the thing sitting on top of the building. And I think it just makes it. That's the logic. It just makes it so much more clear, and it'll be weird to differentiate between existing buildings and new buildings in that logic.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I see it more as like existing buildings kind of are grandfathered in, and there's, the non-conforming buildings are already going to get, there's buildings already above 35 feet, supposedly, not many probably, but some that we have to allow that variance, allow the 5 feet for them above even their existing height. It was just too high. But you're right. I mean, ultimately the solar array can be detached and taken off a building. You can't really take a roof off a building, but you can take, an array off a building. And what you just said is a really good point. And I think maybe I need to remember that, like, we don't want to have people ultimately choose to build their house higher and not do solar. Like, that would be definitely, I don't think anyone wants that to be the outcome. So, good logic.
I just wanted to add real quick, I really appreciate everyone's perspective in this group. Billy, I think absolutely we want to make sure that there's something we're going to present to the next groups that we really believe in and we think is going to be successful and is going to be onboarded by others. And then Whitney, like, absolutely, we don't want to have a house not put solar on because it's going to limit how big that their building can be and how tall it can be. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Do we require new buildings to install solar? My impression was we did not approve that.
No, that was not approved in the amendment.
Oh, it wasn't approved.
No,
Okay.
because what was approved, Billy, I mean, what was approved is to meet your HERS rating. And of course, one way to do so is through solar, but it's not a requirement in order to get to that ultimate.
I thought we had talked about, adding EV charging and adding, for multifamily, and then adding, I'm sorry, I guess I missed the final verdict, but I thought that the houses, and it's unfortunate, it's too bad to hear this. I thought that homes built above a certain size were going to be required to put in renewables.
No, it's just the HERS rating score. To your point, EV capability is required in new construction, and then that HERS score. So one way, of course, as we know, as I just said, it's to do solar, but it's not a requirement at this time for new builds.
Okay, then I'm wrong. Yep.
HERS rating very frequently does require solar.
No,
I would assume that would almost like force your hand, but.
No, so I work for ResNet. We are the HERS rating, so it doesn't require it in and of itself. It's just it improves the score, and sometimes code or say Energy Star LEED certification, these other certifications, they may require. Well, I mean, none of those actually require solar in and of themselves, and neither does HERS. But it's more like local code will require things that will require the adding of solar, which, therefore factors into the HERS index or LEED certification or something like that. But HERS in and of itself, I can tell you, doesn't require it. It just allows for it, and you benefit from it.
And so in order to achieve the HERS score required by Boulder County, most new construction.
There you go. Yes, that is correct. Yeah,
So I just wanted to maybe, if we're comfortable, just wrap up. Sounds like there's consensus then that the statement, let me reread it. Roof mounted systems must be mounted as flush as possible to the roof in order to achieve a proper solar orientation. Panels may exceed the height of the roof line and consequently the maximum height permitted in the zoning district by no more than 5 feet as measured from the roof deck. Seems like there's consensus there. Anyone opposed? Let me ask it that way.
No, that sounds good. I think you added it the way Whitney said it, as measured from the roof deck. I like it.
Whitney, did you have something?
Technically, we're saying that if there was a flat roof building more than 35 feet in Nederland already, the solar could only go up to 40 feet.
Yes.
Even if the building is already 38 feet tall.
No.
That's what it says.
Yeah.
So you're saying, so maximum building height is 35 everywhere, which means it couldn't go any higher than 40.
Well, no, yeah, well, we talked about that. Like if you have a building, and man, I don't think there's many, to be honest. I really don't. There's buildings that are over 35 feet. That, really, I think the intent is to allow them to go 5 foot higher. So if they're at 38 feet, they could go to 43. So I don't know whether we have to have that as extra.
What she just said was 5 feet over the maximum building height,
which would bring you to 40. Yeah. Although I would think if you're trying to go over 40, then maybe that SRU process does play.
I would agree with that. If there's only a few folks that would fall in that category, then let's go through the special review process.
Yeah, I would doubt you. You could count it on one hand. I mean, Cynthia seems to think there's more, but I'd like to just. I can't find them. So I think anything above 40 feet, even existing, the special review process isn't that grueling, and it, I think still, getting, for those few people, if they want a solar array, they will likely get it.
Yeah, and again, that's to appease the community, not these few individual homeowners. And we're going to be solar supportive in the special review process anyways, right? So
yes.
I think
can you read the you just had written down again?
That sentence, that paragraph, yeah. So roof mounted systems must be mounted as flush as possible to the roof. In order to achieve proper solar orientation, panels may exceed the height of the roof line and consequently the maximum height permitted in the zoning district by no more than 5 feet as measured from the roof deck.
Okay.
And I'll send that out in an email. And then if the building is already over maximum building height, they'll go through the SRU process for their solar.
Yeah.
They'd have to go through the special review if their solar was going to stick up above the house.
Right. If their home is already above 35 feet, say it's a 38-foot home, then it will go through the SRU process because it may then take them up to 43.
Well, if they had a 38-foot house and they wanted their solar to be more than 40 feet,
right,
then they would have to go review. Correct, they could still have that.
Yeah, if they had like a flush mount system and they're only adding a slight increase in height, then they wouldn't need to. But if they wanted to go over 40, they would go SRU.
I'm fine with that. I think it's a little unnecessary, but it's simpler to write that way. And it probably will only affect one person ever in Nederland. So
I agree. I'm kind of with Billy. I don't foresee this having a huge impact. Cool. All right. 1A done. Let's talk 1B, which is consider lot coverage. So we're talking your ground mount solar. Do we feel like ground mount solar should be exempt from lot coverage, or If not, how does it play into the calculation of lot coverage? The recommendation from SolarSmart is to have it exempt. What are people's initial thoughts?
I would be fine with exempting it. I think it doesn't, it's permeable, as Jack Solar Garden kind of proves. Finally, we have some research on that kind of thing, but I would be fine with exempting it.
I'm fine with exempting it.
Whitney, Billy? Oh, we lost Whitney on the phone. Oh, and we just lost Billy. Okay. My hope is the consensus is on exemption. And then I would almost argue if you're going to exempt it from lot coverage, maybe it's also not, where do you fall on setbacks? Like, can a solar panel unit, we'll kind of talk about both here. Can a solar panel unit that's a ground mount be closer to the lot line? Or does it have to adhere to setbacks?
Do we have any guidance from Boulder or Boulder County on this?
Let me look at this document, and I haven't seen that. I'd have to do a quick scan here.
Yeah, sorry, that's a tough last minute
No,
question.
no worries. I can, let's see. No, this just goes over like non-conforming lots that has to go through the building permit process. I don't know, is that your ask maybe, Larry, is that we do a little more research into how setbacks are handled in Boulder County?
I guess what I'm thinking about is having to take all this, to other folks, boards and commissions, and building a strong case for the argument, as opposed to we just want to do it and SolarSmart says that's a good idea. I just feel like it'd be good to know, for example, if Boulder or Boulder County has anything on this that would be helpful.
So let me just get Billy, hi Billy, back to speed. So Billy, we kind of are talking about lot coverage and setbacks together. I think it sounds like Melody and Larry feel like for ground mounted solar, we should exempt it from the lot coverage calculation. Do you support that?
100%. Yeah. And I know there'll be resistance, but I am totally going to fight that tooth and nail because that's insane. I mean, because I don't think you count eaves of a home into lot coverage. And yeah, I mean, it's just, and you put pavers on the sidewalk or so that water can percolate through there, without a doubt, they shouldn't count towards lot coverage.
Okay.
I think setbacks, I'm not quite as rock solid on that because of some concerns I heard.
Concern with setbacks is, of course, your impact on your neighbors. Like if you're not adhering to setbacks, then you could put your solar mount right on your property line to your neighbors, and what the dynamic there. I do think there's probably more research that needs to be done in terms of setbacks because they're there for that purpose. So you're not encroaching onto your neighbors, your property, or the lot coverage items that you integrate into your parcel are not impacting your neighbors.
Yeah, and there was also kind of an interesting, and I don't know the reality of this, but an interesting point brought up by Linda in the PC about concerns about wind and snow, and snow fences. Just seeing, I mean, like in Wyoming and how snow builds up behind them. Concerned that, ground mounted arrays might have that dynamic to a degree. I don't think it's huge, but I think keeping inside the setbacks would help take care of that. But yeah, I think research is a great idea because.
Okay. So what we could do is between now and the 22nd, as town staff, do some research on how other municipalities handle this setback situation for solar, for ground mounted solar.
Oh yeah, the other concern was visibility near intersections, I think.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's all Cynthia had on the agenda. Happy to open it up. Happy to give people 25 minutes back. Are there other things you want to talk about? Otherwise, I think that is our next step. We've got the first two set and we'll do research on setbacks.
Well, I wonder if I could ask Billy particularly if he has anything else on his mind.
I'm riding my bike home from dropping my daughter off preschool. No, I think, again, I feel like the lot coverage is reasonable, very reasonable, that it not be counted. And I think ultimately that will, everyone will agree to that. I just think, yeah, on the setbacks, you know, just being conscious of road intersection, visibility, and possible wind drift issues. And, you know, because I do, like, technically, I don't really have anything specific in my head other than I do want this to succeed big time, where there's, you know, little like pushback going through the process or after the fact by people that are less, you know, into solar. And so that's kind of been my biggest motivation, is to try to create something that will be met by most of the people in town, you know. Met with me, like most of the people will be happy with.
Cool. Well, if there's anyone else have anything else, or that's it for today.
Thanks, everyone.
Y'all good? Okay. I like fast and efficient. So, all right,
Yeah.
well, we have our task, and we will, as town staff, we will come back to you on the 22nd with that setback research.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.